Good evening. It is great to be around so many people who care about kids. I want to start with something that doesn't have anything to do with testing. It's a quote. What new piece of the universe did your students touch today? That might not be a bad guide for our education policy. It was actually stated by Dr. Bruce Alberts, the president, former head of the National Academy of Sciences, editor of Science Magazine, an absolute passionate advocate for children, for learning not just in the sciences, but across all endeavors of humanity. And I love the quote because it captures all the things we need to be looking at. The teacher, it's very personalized. What did your students touch new in the universe today? That relational part of teaching. Just the whole idea of universe as expanding the possibilities of what we think about. You can't put the universe on a Scantron bubble. And of course it comes down to the kids, and the idea of new piece of the universe means not just we're looking forward, but we're looking back. We're building on what they know already. And I find if we step back from this system, it just becomes so terribly odd. We are standing at a moment of history when we the grown-ups have never had more to teach our children. We are not limited by our own personal knowledge, our geography, our language, and we've never known more about learning, how people learn, how children learn, the multiple ways, the sociocultural factors, multiple intelligences, how the brain and mind work, and I'm not the person that can talk about that, but I'm so in awe of it. So this should be the most amazing moment to be a child in school. It should be the most exciting time to be a teacher. And it's just so very odd that we've chosen this time in history to so narrow what we're teaching, to fragment it, to put the knowledge in a form that it can be tested on a computer-scored machine far, far away from our children. So I started with the Alberts quote to say, I hope we'll step back and not just tinker with the system we have. I hope we will stop to think about what we really could be doing for the kids. And I represent one of those scholars that accidentally stumbled into the standardization. I was in school studying other things in 1994. So I've been the witness to 18 years worth of the impact, and also from whole networks of colleagues here at UT and across the country. We now have not just your family's experience, your children's experience, but very concrete knowledge of the degradation of the curriculum, the narrowing of the curriculum. The universe ain't there. The incentivizing for principals to, quote, lose the kids that are not likely to score well on the test. This is an upside-down accountability system, and we hear principals talking about which kids are assets to the school and which ones are liabilities to the school ratings. When we step outside this system, there is no external indicator that says the Texas system has served kids well over the last 18 years, whether it's the SAT, the NAEP in the upper grades, the international test, the AP, the ACT, certainly not our graduation rates. A 1 or 2 point budge in a graduation rate is not educating the children of Texas. We have just seen incredible intellectual losses, loss of spirit of teachers and kids. And I think we have a slide about some of the dollar cost. We know that in the last legislative session, education took what, between a $5 and $6 billion hit. 12,000 teachers were laid off, and the one sacrosanct expenditure was the state's contract to the Pearson Testing Company. And this was provided to me by a legislative staffer. I wish it were fiction, but I think it's true. And as we start looking at the other costs, and we had another slide and it turns out it doesn't work, but I just want to read you some of the things your tax dollars are paying for that represent dollars going out of the classroom. First of all, the tests, the initial tests, the retake, the test prep materials. These are all hidden costs. Test prep materials show up in the curriculum budget. Those consultants that come in with the highlighters to teach the teachers how to teach the kids the game and the test, that shows up as staff development money. Benchmark tests, snapshot tests, sometimes now as often as every 2 or 3 weeks. Test acquisition, test storage, test distribution to schools, shipping to vendors, and then all the central office staff, clerks, people that report to the state, people that report to the feds. It really becomes a list of absolutely absurd expenditures that are hidden in local budgets that are draining our local school systems and that the local district people feel they have to comply with. I was going over this list that I just kind of made up from the people I know in schools, and someone who works closely with the legislature said, "You forgot the doors." And I said, "I don't think I know about the doors." And they said, "Oh, you know, every school has to have a big metal secure door to keep the tests and the answer sheets in." I don't know how many field trips or art supplies that would pay for, but I would like to have that examined. So we have a very, very costly system that through many, many research studies, whether it's of curriculum, of what's happening to our special ed kids, what's happening to our English learners, what's just happening to kids across our system, that Texas kids keep showing up so low on every measure. It is costly also in dollars, and none of these things are things that we would actually pay for if we sat down as families and taxpayers and as teachers and educators and said, what's the greatest thing we can do for our kids? Well, let's pay for a security door. Let's pay for some clerk that crunches the numbers and then may or may not report them correctly. So we have a very, very serious crisis here because this is all junk. And there are people getting rich off of it. They are not our teachers, and they are definitely not our children. They're not our children's future. I take great hope, not just in the researchers and teachers and parents who've helped build this documented record, but also in all of you who are working in parent groups here in Austin. Our newspapers in Houston don't cover Austin in the legislature much, so it's fun to come over here and find out there are really wonderful things going on. And also this resolution that so many of our school districts signed, and I know the early ones that took a lot of courage. If you read all the whereases, it says, whereas, and this is hurting our curriculum, this is taking staff time, this is hurting our teachers, this is hurting our kids, this is hurting the public schools. The later signers really have helped now build this incredible momentum. I'm being ejected. My question, I think, to those of you who are here as parents and representing the legislature, representing school districts, if all those whereases are true, shouldn't we shut this down? Isn't it time to write? Isn't it time to just write a memo to the state and say, you know, we just can't afford this year. We've got to get back to teaching our kids. We'll get back to you when we get to rehire all those teachers, when we can buy those musical instruments again. Because this is really a matter of ethics, and it is a matter of conscience. And I think the more people work together so that no one is left vulnerable, the more likely we are that the publics, and I am saying public apostrophe S, these are our children and these are our schools, and we do have a whole universe out there to teach them, and I would like to see us get rid of this and other barriers. And we don't have time to talk about children's health, but we have huge barriers to our children's learning. This is when we can do something about fairly immediately. Thank you so much.